So next up I'm going to be looking at the living equipment. So that's the stuff that Britz include as part of your hire. To be honest, this is where things really start to go wrong for Britz. It wouldn't take much effort or thought to get this right, but yeah, well, I'll just launch into it and you'll see. You get one fairly grotty tea towel. Why only one, I don't know. You know, there may be $1 each. This one's so old it doesn't really absorb anything. We had to go out and buy some tea towels that were usable. In fact, just the fact there's only one isn't very helpful. You know, it really wouldn't hurt to give you two to help with the washing up. You get an extremely blunt large knife. That's next to useless. You get a metallic spoon or ladle thing. Not much good. You get a strainer thing. 3 of each spoon category, so 3 large spoons, 3 teaspoons, 3 forks, 3 knives, 1 pair of tongs, a little book of matches. You get a corkscrew. You get a tin opener, a fairly crappy potato peeler. You get one very small chopping board. Very small. Why only one? Why so small? It's all just part of the impression you get that no one actually from Britz has to actually live in their vans. There's no bread knife. That would have been extremely useful. The most annoying thing is on the pots and pans, which we've got down here. There's no non-stick pan. Now I know the reason they'll say they're not providing one is because it'll get scratched and knocked about and quickly become useless. But even if it only lasts one hire, Britz, you know, they're $5. We had to go and buy a decent non-stick pan because trying to use these literally smoke the van out. They're impossible to cook with and impossible to clean. It really wouldn't take much effort to get a non-stick pan. If you're really worried about it getting scratched, put it in a cover or something. You know, there's no reason you can't give us a non-stick pan. What else do you get? You get a colander, 2 mixing bowls. I don't know why we're not baking cakes. What else is in there? Not much in that fairly difficult cupboard. Oh, the other thing you don't get a wooden spoon. So if you do happen to go and buy your own non-stick pan, you don't want to be using a metallic spoon next to you will scratch it. So you know, just little things like that, you know, make you think that perhaps no one really cares that much. The worst thing though, we'll get to, that's the bedding. This is really unbelievable. So these are the pillows that Britz gave us. I mean, that's, you know, a pillow, if it's a half decent pillow that's, you know, should be able to support itself under its own weight. It should be light and fluffy. I mean, that is just, I mean, there's nothing in that. It is hopeless. The first thing we had to do was go and buy some decent pillows. If a hotel gave you that, you know, you would walk out. It's just ridiculous, and it's plainly obvious. You get that this is not acceptable. There is no quality control going on in terms of the living equipment, it would seem, because you wouldn't have that in your house. You wouldn't give it to a guest, but yet Britz are happy to give pillows of that quality to a paying customer, and it's not like, you know, their prices are cheap. They're pathetic. Really quite irritated by that. Next up is the bedding you get. So you get a duvet, but look, I mean, it's just, well, it's so old. It's got holes in it. It's just it must have been through the wash God knows how many times. It's, you know, it's just you would expect more for what you pay. You would expect more. It's threadbare. It's just not good, and these are cheap things to Britz. They could make this right, but the overall impression you get is that no one really cares about the customer experience once they've got your money. So yeah, they really let themselves down on the living equipment. And I've hired from, as I say, the likes of Traveller's Autobarn in the past. and they clearly put a fair bit more thought into these simple things that make a big difference. So if you are going to go with Britz, just be prepared to buy perhaps a few more things than perhaps you thought you might need to. What else can I point out? You've got towels, again, not great quality. This is the sheets for the bed, not great quality. They were clean, but it's just low quality. And you know, if you're a hotel giving those things out to your guests, I'm sure you'd go bankrupt. So I think Britz really need to up their game on the living equipment. It's not good enough. So I can't think of anything else to mention about. Oh yes, the kettles. You get buried in here somewhere. You do get a. You might just have to take my word for it. There's a toaster in there, an electrical toaster, which you can use when you're plugged in. There's an electric kettle over there. That was reasonable, and you get a gas kettle for when you're not on the electric. They were fine. You generally won't, when I've hired from the backpacker type operations, you won't. Well, you'll get one gas kettle. You won't get a toaster usually, as far as I'm aware, and you won't get an electric kettle. So that concludes the rather sad state of the Britz living equipment. Actually, there's one or two other things I wanted to say about the living equipment. I forgot to mention that you do actually Britz supply a washing line, which is actually a bit of rope. The idea is you can tie between two trees or something, and they give you a few pegs. In fact, they give you 13 pegs, which is just ridiculous, really. I mean, if there's two of you, and there usually will be, that means that each of you could hang up 3 t-shirts, 2 pegs each. That'll give you a peg left over. I mean, this is what I mean about just no thought going into anything. Of course, you're going to need a lot more than 13 pegs for 2 people, assuming that you may be doing your washing once a week or something. Just daft. The other thing you get is a bucket. It's actually useful. Not entirely sure what the intended point of having it is, but yeah, you get a bucket. One actual quite big frustration again, I haven't got a picture of it, was the hose pipe you get for filling up your internal water tank. It was about 4 meters long, which is just way too short. More often than not, when you're at a campsite, the tap is going to be more than 4 meters from your van, especially given that the tap could be on the opposite side to where your inlet hole for the tank is. It made filling up unnecessarily difficult. You generally had to reposition the van or try and park at an awkward angle or something just to get the hose pipe to reach. There's no good reason why they can't give you a reasonable length of hose. You know, I've hired these vans from other people before, and you get, I don't know what length it is, but if we suppose that this Britz one is 4, certainly people have hired the same van off elsewhere, it's double that length, so possibly 8 to 10 meters, which is actually, I'd say, probably the minimum length you need. So yeah, it's just all these little things compounded together. You just can't help but think that no one actually gives any thought to anything at Britz. Anyway,